And if this is water erosion, again proves the pyramid is older than 10,000 years. This is not as strong as we have at the Sphinx. I want to see Robert Schoch and other geologists comment on this, whether they think this could possibly be water erosion, not sand. So it's something we're working on. Next. This is the east face of the Great Pyramid, which clearly shows wind and sand. This is subjected to the common sense. So once the casing stones have been removed, which is probably within the last couple of thousand years, the casing stones have been removed, this area has been subjected to severe wind and sand erosion. It shows typical type of erosion caused by that. Next. Here's the so-called mystery glyphs. David told you that we come across things that no one can understand. I submit this to you for all you extraterrestrial buffs who want to get into this. Egyptologists cannot even comment on what this possibly could mean. It's not typical glyphs. This is the sign of the netter. Again, divine principle. Also, there's usually a star. Here it is. Star sometimes means from the stars, or possibly extraterrestrial. And there's symbol like dots here, lines, a circle. Somebody speculated this could be, looks like a socket where something is plugged in. Hakim says this means the power of the netter. It does respond to something. At one time, this was an actual device, a raised device where something metallic was plugged into to work with energy. So he agrees with that. At the Star Knowledge Conference, where I was just at, some of the extraterrestrials, including a gentleman who's going to be leading the tour with me next year, named Benny LeBeau, a Shoshone wisdom keeper, said he thinks this is a notation. This represents either a coordinate of something extraterrestrial. We had somebody channeling. Now, again, you folks can have your own opinions about what's channeled. Everybody, I always say you take channeled information with large grains of salt. If it resonates with you, fine. If it doesn't, forget about it, because it can't be proven one way or another. But somebody who's a well-known channeled in that this is language of the ETs. You can take that for what you will. We see these glyphs all over Egypt. I have other pictures of it from different sites. This is at Philae, and it's right out in the open. I can show it to you. Next. Here she is. I told you we're going to show another so-called lioness face, Sekhmet, whose name actually means the power. The Egyptologists like to call her the goddess of war and destruction. It shows in their patriarchal, limited mentality, they think. She represents power, the power of woman. She represents the power of motherhood, unconditional love, tough love. If you understand how a lioness will do, she'll let her little cub chew on her ear just as long as she can tolerate, and then whap. And that's the lesson. Don't do that again. That's what she represents, tough love. But I bring this to you for another reason. We're just there 2 weeks ago, and I noticed something that she was cracked right along here. You don't see the crack here, 1999. This statue's been attacked. When I told this to Hakim, he was appalled. And he blames, of course, the so-called antiquities police, who have paid big money to protect these things. But if you go into the chamber that's before her chamber, her consort of Ptah is supposed to be there, but his head is missing. Obviously, you know what Muslims do, Arabs do, Egyptians do, they don't value this ancient civilization like we do. They know we value it, so when they find an artifact, they'll break it up into pieces and sell it to tourists. So we think she's been attacked, and they've been trying to remove her head to sell it. The reason why I bring this up is she told me in 1999, and yes, these things do speak to me, Sphinx speaks to me, you can take that for what you will. She told me to take her picture, because she said to me as we were walking into the temple, I will not always be here in this form. The statue, the energy will always be there. We think this is an interdimensional portal, by the way. Folks that are into that this is actually an interdimensional gateway where the statue is positioned. Once again, Hakim teaches us these things are always there for meanings, always there for a purpose, why they're at a particular place. A lot of people have great visions, great experiences with Sekhmet. Andrea, who's a great ceremonialist, does a wonderful ceremony here. She's very deeply connected to Sekhmet herself. So's my Teresa, so's Christine, who's here in the audience, so's other people who've been to Egypt, feel a very deep connection to Sekhmet. She has a relation to Sirius, the star system Sirius, so does the Sphinx. And there is, some people think, an interdimensional portal gateway right behind where the statue is, which actually you can project your consciousness to Sirius. You take this stuff as you will, folks. I just put it out there. You resonate with it or you don't. It doesn't make a difference to me, because this is the teachings I'm given and what I've experienced. But the important thing, go back. The important thing is that she's been attacked. So what she told me is true, that they're trying to damage. Andrea said to me, no, I've always seen that crack. Well, I said to her, well, how long have you been going to Egypt? Since 1999. Hakim said this statue was pristine. Not only that, she's got an iron bar behind her now, which is bracing the statue up against the wall. That iron bar wasn't there in 1999 when I was there. So This is just an example of what we have to deal with. Why we have to take pictures, why we have to get images. Because this is why I had to go back to see the Temple of Maya. Because I feel if Zahi Hawass finds out about it, it's not going to be there anymore for people to see. So it's still there. But that's why we have to take pictures and images to record these things. Otherwise, we have no proof, just lip service of what we've seen. Next. Now we're going into the second book. This gentleman is the reason why I got into Egyptology in the first place. Now again, these were not names, these were titles. He was given a title at birth, Amenhotep. Amen, darkness, the hidden. Hotep, I showed you, sacrifice, altar. It's a sacrifice to the dark one, to the hidden. Well, this gentleman decided that that title didn't fit him at all. Didn't fit what he was all about. He's not in the age of Amen. So he took the title Akhenaten, or as the Egyptians like to say, Akhenaton. Akhenaten. Ach means the shade or the shadow. Aten, we showed you, the fourth stage of consciousness, the wiser, the state of enlightenment. The shade or the shadow of the wiser. Also, I say, literally means a reflection of enlightenment. Now you may say, well, isn't that arrogant of this individual to take this title that I'm a reflection of enlightenment? Well, you know, Buddha, who was born Siddhartha of the Sakyamuni tribe, is given the title Gautam Buddha. Well, that means the awakened one. It's the same title. Akhenaten, shadow of the wiser. So this gentleman wanted to do away with the fact that we're in the age of darkness and wanted to return to the age of enlightenment, the age of Aten. And so he took this title. He stopped a lot of the practices of images, of mummification. David and I have got into detailed discussions about this. There was no mummification during it. He only ruled for a time period of maybe 17 to 20 years. Ahmed Osman says 21 years. There's some evidence to that. Of a time period around 1350 BC. This was, and I use in the book I'm writing now, the symbol of yin-yang, if you folks know that. You see the circle with darkness with a speck of light. You see the circle with light with a speck of darkness. So I say that even in the age of darkness, which we've been in for 5,000 years, there's those specks of light. Now you may call those specks of light Jesus Christ, Moses, Muhammad, Guru Nanak, the Buddha, Yogananda, whoever, Satya Sai Baba. There are these beings who've come along for the last 5,000 years who've been saying, wait a minute, it's not the way you guys have been taught by these religious leaders. There's something else going on here. We all are enlightened. We're born that way. Well, he was one of those sparks of light. He was trying to return to a time where we didn't need religion. So he actually told the Yaman priests, you're out of a job. We're not worshiping darkness here anymore. We're not selling indulgences. We're not selling mummification. We're not giving the bids to the highest bidder who could have the most prayers on their tombs, which is what dynastic religion was all about. He said we're going to return to a time where people can just meditate in the light of the sun. And opposed to what other people teach you about this man, he was not worshiping the sun. He was worshiping light, the power behind the sun. Light itself, which is not even, with light which dispels darkness, which is illumination, which is what enlightenment means. This is we have so many different statues of him. This is the most accurate of what he actually looked like. And this is probably, David, going to be the cover of the book. Because this is a statue that was done by the person who did the famous bust of Nefertiti. He had the name Tutmo's title. That is actually what he really looked like. Not as grotesque and cartoonish as we see the statues of him all over. And you can look at any book in Egyptology. Why? Because he told his sculptors, don't portray me as Superman, like all these other kings are shown, muscular, young, always 20 years old. I don't care about the physical. The physical's not important. Portray me as I am. I have some anomalies. He may have been 7 feet tall. He may have had some endocrine disorders. So he said, portray me as I am. And they did. They did it overboard. They made him look cartoonish, except for the sculptor, who did the most realistic portrait of him. And then there's those heads that David showed you about, the strange heads that supposedly his daughters had with Nefertiti that could be extraterrestrial. There are people, there's actually a gentleman named Daniel Blair Stewart who's written a book called Akhenaten, the Extraterrestrial King, who actually claims that this gentleman was an incarnation from Sirius, had never been in human body before. And that's why the heads are so deformed. You take that as you will. Again, that's just things that are put out there. One thing is for certain, that he was an unusual human being. His teachings, although they made no impact, it seems, in Egypt, because after he leaves the scene, they go right back to the worship of Amun, They go right back to the way where they were before. But however,